Sometimes the people you die for are the ones who slowly kill your spirit. I remember standing in my kitchen that morning, coffee gone cold, sunlight spilling through half-closed blinds, when I heard my son whisper, "Don't tell Mom yet." He thought I couldn't hear. But I did. My heart froze. That's the kind of sentence that changes everything. I'd raised 2 kids mostly on my own after their father walked out when they were teenagers. Worked 2 jobs, skipped vacations, and built a home out of exhaustion and prayers. I thought we had no secrets. I thought we were a team. But that morning, their voices came from the living room, hushed guilty. "Sarah, it's better she doesn't know." "Not now," my daughter said. My son replied, "She'll take it hard. Let's just handle it ourselves." Handle what? I stood there, holding my mug so tight it almost cracked. My mind raced. Was it money, health, something with the house? But they went quiet when I stepped in, smiling too easily, their eyes avoiding mine. That's when I felt the first sting of betrayal. Not because of what they were hiding, but because they thought I couldn't handle the truth. Later that night, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe they were planning a surprise. But mothers know. There's a sound in silence, a truth in every lie told too gently. Over the next few days, they avoided eye contact. My daughter started calling less. My son became busy. And every time I asked, "Is something wrong?" I got that same fake smile and, "No, Mom, everything's fine." Everything was not fine. I finally found out one afternoon when I went to the mailbox. There was a letter from the county office, addressed to me but already opened. Inside, it said my house had been refinanced. My name wasn't even on the new papers. My children had used my signature. I sat on the porch steps, staring at that letter, and for the first time in years, I didn't cry. I just went numb. They'd told themselves they were protecting me, that it was for my own good, that the new loan would cover their debts, just temporary. But all I saw was betrayal wearing love's disguise. When they came home that evening, I didn't yell. I placed the letter on the table and said, "I raised you to be honest, not to decide when I deserve the truth." They froze. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. My son tried to explain, but I just shook my head. "I've been your mother, your shield, your safety net. But you took something that wasn't yours, my trust." That night, after they left, I sat alone in the dark, holding that letter. And I whispered to myself, "They think I'm weak, but they've just reminded me who I really am." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my children's faces. The same faces I once kissed goodnight, now blurred with guilt and avoidance. For years, I had believed that being a good mother meant sacrificing without question. Saying yes when I wanted to say no. Helping even when I had nothing left to give. But that letter, it changed something inside me. By morning, my coffee sat untouched. I stared at my reflection in the microwave door. Tired eyes, faint wrinkles, but still the same woman who had once rebuilt her life from nothing. I had faced divorce, layoffs, loneliness, and yet somehow I had made it through. So why was I letting this break me? I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. My voice didn't shake when I called the county office. "Hi, this is Mrs. Thompson. I need to verify a property record under my name." The woman on the other end sounded kind but cautious. "Yes, ma'am. It was refinanced last month. Do you have authorization from the other signers?" I swallowed hard. "No, but I think I need to." That one call set everything in motion. I spent the next few days collecting documents, old mortgage papers, bank statements, my ID. My hands trembled as I opened every drawer, every folder. Years of memories spilled out. Photos of my kids at graduation, birthday cards, report cards with "Love you," Mom scrawled in crayon. It hurt, because every memory reminded me of the trust that used to live in this house. But hurt is fuel when you've been underestimated. When my son came over that weekend, pretending everything was fine, I met him at the door. No warmth this time. No coffee on the table. Just truth. "I spoke to the county," I said quietly. "And I know everything." He froze. "Mom, listen, it's not what you think." I interrupted. "You forged my name. That's not love. That's theft." His eyes darted to the floor. "We were desperate. We thought we'd lose everything. I was going to fix it before you even found out." I shook my head. "You didn't just take from me, you took my right to choose. You treated me like I wasn't capable. Like I was someone to protect, not respect." He tried to speak, but for the first time in years, I didn't let my voice break. "You wanted to save me from worry. Congratulations. You've given me something worse, doubt." He left in silence. That night, My daughter texted me a long apology. I didn't reply. I needed space, not words. As I sat by the window, city lights flickering in the distance, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't a duty. It was a privilege, one they'd have to earn. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to reclaim what was mine, not just the house, but my dignity. And this time, I wouldn't do it for them. I'd do it for me. There's a moment when pain stops feeling like heartbreak and starts feeling like clarity. For me, that moment came when I stood in line at the county records office, holding my folder tight against my chest. It wasn't just paper I was carrying. It was years of silence, obedience, and misplaced trust. The clerk called my number. Next, I stepped forward, my voice steady. I need to dispute a property refinancing done under my name. I didn't authorize it. Her expression softened. Do you have proof? I handed over the documents, my old deed, my ID, my signature samples. I could see her eyebrows lift slightly as she compared them. This looks serious, she said quietly. You'll need to file an affidavit of forgery. We'll start a formal investigation. For the first time in days, I felt something close to relief. Not because it would be easy, but because I was finally doing something. When I walked out of that office, the autumn air hit my face like a wake-up call. The leaves were turning, people were rushing by, and there I was, a 47-year-old woman finally choosing herself. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook. I made a list. Call a lawyer. Freeze accounts. Change passwords. Don't answer emotional calls. Every item was a step toward freedom. When my daughter showed up 2 days later, she looked exhausted. No makeup, red eyes. Mom, please can we talk? I didn't move from my seat. You can talk. I'll listen. She took a deep breath. It was my idea. The refinancing. I thought if we consolidated the debt, you wouldn't worry. I didn't think it would hurt you like this. Her voice cracked, but I stayed quiet. Do you know what hurts? I finally said. It's that you both decided I was too fragile to face reality. That after everything I've done, you still saw me as weak. Tears streamed down her face. You're not weak, Mom. You're the strongest woman I know. Then start treating me like it. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back gently. I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I need to trust myself first, before I can trust you again. Her shoulders sagged. I understand. After she left, I sat in silence for a long time. The house felt different now, colder, but somehow more honest. That night, I called an attorney named Linda Parker. Her voice was calm, professional. I deal with family financial fraud all the time, she said. You're not alone. We'll get through this. Those words hit deep. You're not alone. Because that's exactly how I had felt for so long, even surrounded by my own family. As I hung up, I realized something powerful. They had taken my name off a paper, but they couldn't take my name off my life. From that moment on, I wasn't just a mother trying to fix her family. I was a woman reclaiming her worth. The next few weeks felt like walking through a storm, exhausting, cold, but necessary. Every morning, I woke up at 6, poured myself black coffee, and stared at the stack of paperwork on my dining table. Bank statements, loan documents, notarized letters, proof of what had been done behind my back. Linda, my lawyer, was patient and precise. We'll file a fraud claim and request an investigation into the refinancing. You'll need to be strong, Mrs. Thompson. Sometimes the people we love the most make us fight the hardest battles. I smiled weakly. I've been fighting my whole life. I can handle this one too. She nodded. Then let's begin. By the second week, the investigation had started. My children were contacted for questioning. I didn't warn them. Not out of spite, but because accountability shouldn't come with a warning. That night, my son called. His tone was sharp, almost offensive. Mom, what did you do? You brought in a lawyer? Are you trying to ruin our lives? I took a slow breath. No, Michael. I'm trying to fix mine. He scoffed. You're making a big deal out of nothing. We were just trying to help. By forging my signature? I asked quietly. Silence. Then he said, we didn't think you'd understand how complicated things got. You've been through so much lately. I cut him off. Don't use my age or kindness as excuses for betrayal. You made a decision that wasn't yours to make. He hung up. And for a few seconds, I just stared at the phone, my hand trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of finally standing my ground. The next day, I went to the bank with Linda. The manager, a middle-aged man with a polite smile, reviewed my complaint. Mrs. Thompson, he said, this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think. Adult children sometimes assume they can act on behalf of their parents. But the law doesn't work like that. I nodded. Neither does love. Leaving that office, I felt taller. Not because I'd won anything yet, but because I was no longer pretending everything was fine. Later that week, my daughter texted again. "Mom, please, can we talk without lawyers? I hate how far this has gone." I typed my reply carefully. "We can talk when you're ready to tell the truth. Until then, I need to protect myself, from everyone, even you." That was the hardest message I ever sent. But for once, it was the honest one. That night, I sat by my window, the city humming quietly below. I thought about every time I'd put my kids before myself. The nights I stayed up sewing costumes, the times I skipped doctor visits to pay their tuition. And now, finally, I was learning what no one had ever taught me. Being a good mother doesn't mean letting yourself be broken in silence. It means showing your children what strength really looks like, even if it scares them. The letter from the investigator came 2 weeks later. Short, official, cold, but powerful. It stated that there was enough evidence to prove the refinancing was unauthorized. My name had been misused, and further legal action could follow. I sat at my dining table reading that letter over and over. It wasn't victory I felt. It was validation. All the nights I'd doubted myself, all the times I'd wondered if I was being too harsh, that paper told me I wasn't crazy. I had been wronged, and I had every right to stand up. That evening, I sent a simple text to both of my kids. "Come home tomorrow evening. We need to talk." No emojis. No explanation. Just truth waiting on the table. When they arrived, the air was heavy. My son stood near the door, arms crossed. My daughter clutched her phone like a shield. I laid the letter in front of them. "This," I said quietly, "is what happens when you play with trust." My son muttered, "So what now? You want us arrested? Is that what you want?" I looked at him, the same boy I once rocked to sleep, who used to cry when he scraped his knees. "No, Michael. I want you to learn something you should have learned years ago: respect." My daughter started crying. "Mom, we were drowning in debt. We didn't know what else to do. We thought if we fixed it fast enough, you'd never have to find out." I leaned back, my voice calm. "You didn't protect me. You erased me. You took away my choice, my name, my control. That's not love. That's fear pretending to care." For a moment, no one spoke. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator between us. Then I said, "I'm not pressing charges. But you're both going to fix what you broke. Every cent. Every paper. And until that's done, you'll respect the boundaries I set. You don't step into my financial life. You don't make decisions for me. And you don't come here acting like nothing happened." My son's jaw tightened. "You're really cutting us off?" I shook my head. "I'm setting you free from thinking I'll always clean up your mistakes." He looked down, silent. My daughter wiped her tears, nodding slowly. "We'll make it right, Mom. I promise." For the first time, I saw something in their eyes. Not pity, not guilt, but recognition. They finally saw me as a woman, not just a mother. After they left, I stood by the window again. The streetlights reflected off the glass, and I saw my own face, tired but stronger. I whispered to myself, "This isn't revenge. This is repair." Because sometimes forgiveness isn't about letting go of the past. It's about teaching people how to treat you in the future. And that night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. My children began the process of correcting the refinancing, meeting with banks, and signing legal papers under my supervision. Every step was meticulous, every signature mine to witness. It was strange to see them struggle with the consequences of their actions. My son, who used to rush through life believing he could fix anything with charm, now moved cautiously, double-checking every detail. My daughter, once so confident, hesitated before making decisions, a humility I hadn't seen in years. Through it all, I realized something profound. I had always been their safety net. But safety nets don't teach strength, they shield from reality. By overprotecting them, I had unknowingly created a space where fear, not respect, guided their choices. Now, I wasn't just reclaiming my house or my financial freedom. I was reclaiming my role as the mother who demanded honesty, accountability, and dignity. One afternoon, as I sorted through old letters and bills, my daughter knocked on my office door. "Mom," she said softly. I didn't look up immediately. "Yes. I wanted to apologize again. I know saying sorry isn't enough. But I want you to know I understand now. I see what you always tried to teach us. You were right." I set the papers down and turned to her. Her eyes were earnest, filled with tears but also with clarity. "You're finally listening," I said quietly. "That's what matters. Understanding comes before forgiveness. Remember that." She nodded, and for a moment I let myself smile, not the soft, forgiving smile I'd given so easily in the past, but the strong, confident smile of someone who had finally reclaimed control of her life. I spent that evening writing a list of boundaries. Not harsh rules, just guidelines for respect and honesty. No decisions in my name without my knowledge. Transparency with finances. Communication before action. Accountability for mistakes. I pinned it on the refrigerator, visible, firm, unambiguous. It wasn't about punishment. It was about clarity. Later, my son called from his apartment. "Mom, we've signed the papers. Everything should be corrected within the week." "Good," I replied. My voice was calm. "I'll be checking, of course." He chuckled nervously. "We know. You've always been thorough. And I always will be," I said. For the first time, I understood that being strong didn't mean never being hurt. It meant using hurt as fuel to create boundaries, demand respect, and protect oneself. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. That night, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman transformed. Not because my children had made things right, but because I had refused to be diminished by their choices. Sometimes the hardest battles teach the most essential lessons. And the truth is, strength doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from facing it, standing tall, and demanding that the world acknowledge your worth. I poured myself a cup of tea, feeling the warmth seep into my hands. And I whispered to myself, I am still me. Strong. Undiminished. Worthy. By the end of that week, the final bank documents arrived. Every signature verified. Every account restored. My name was back where it belonged. My home, both the physical space and the symbol of my life's work, was mine again. I sat at the dining table, running my fingers over the edges of the papers. The weight of months of worry, betrayal, and quiet anger finally lifted. It wasn't a dramatic victory, no confetti, no celebrations. Just truth. Later that evening, my children came over. Their eyes were different now, sober, reflective, and almost reverent. They knew that nothing would ever be the same. And that was okay. Mom, my son began hesitantly, we really didn't understand what we were doing. We just thought we were helping, but we see now how wrong we were. I nodded. I know you thought that, but seeing intention doesn't erase the impact. That's something you'll have to carry with you. You've learned a lesson the hard way, about respect, about honesty, and about the cost of underestimating someone you love. My daughter spoke next, her voice trembling. We want your forgiveness, Mom. Truly. I looked at them, taking in their nervous expressions. Forgiveness isn't a gift I give lightly. It's earned. And you've started earning it by facing the truth and taking responsibility. That's the first step. We sat in silence after that, the kind of quiet that isn't awkward but sacred. No phones, no distractions. Just three people, learning to exist together with honesty. For the first time in years, I felt neither anger nor fear. I felt power, the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing your worth and standing firm, no matter who challenges it. Later that night, I walked through my home. I ran my hands along the walls, remembering the late nights I spent repairing broken furniture, folding laundry, and saving receipts for every expense. Every corner held memories of perseverance, sacrifice, and love. And now, every corner also held proof that my dignity could not be stolen, not even by my own children. I paused by the living room window and looked outside. The street was calm, the city lights flickering softly, as if echoing the stillness inside me. I realized that life hadn't punished me for being kind or for giving everything I had. It had simply taught me a lesson in strength, patience, and self-respect. And in that quiet, reflective moment, I whispered to myself, they finally see me, not just as their mother, but as a woman. Strong, unbreakable, worthy. I had fought without malice, reclaimed what was mine without vengeance, and taught the people I loved the most a lesson they would never forget. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And that truth felt like freedom. The days after everything was resolved were calm, almost eerily so. My home felt lighter. The air seemed cleaner. And for the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of worry pressing against my chest. My children began to visit more regularly, cautiously, respectfully. They no longer acted like nothing had happened, and I no longer acted like I had to forgive them instantly. There was space now for honesty, accountability, and rebuilding trust. One afternoon, as we shared a quiet cup of tea, my daughter said softly, "Mom, we've learned so much about honesty, respect, and your strength. We never realized how much we underestimated you." I smiled, not with indulgence, but with recognition. Strength isn't about never being hurt. It's about standing up when you are. About knowing your worth and never letting anyone take it away, even if they're the people you love most. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. We'll never forget this. That night, I sat alone by the window, city lights flickering in the distance. My hands rested on the arm of the chair, and I reflected on the journey I'd walked, from betrayal and humiliation to courage and clarity. I thought about all the nights I cried in silence, all the moments I wondered if I'd lost my mind or my dignity. And I realized something. The pain wasn't wasted. Every sleepless night, every whisper of fear, every pang of betrayal had built me into the woman I had become. I looked in the mirror across the room and saw a face I barely recognized at first. Not because it had changed, but because I had. There was quiet power in my eyes, a deep knowing in the lines of my face, and a soft, unshakable strength in the set of my jaw. Sometimes I whispered to myself, it takes losing trust to reclaim it. Sometimes it takes betrayal to discover how much power you carry. And sometimes the people you love most are the ones who remind you just how strong you are, even if they do it the hardest way possible. I thought about my children and how their actions forced me to draw boundaries, demand respect, and reclaim what was mine. And in that reflection, I felt a deep, quiet peace. I had been tested. I had been underestimated. I had been hurt. But I had risen. I poured myself a cup of tea, sat back in the chair, and whispered softly to the empty room. Sometimes you have to lose everything to realize how strong you really are. And now, I know I am unbreakable. And I realized finally that forgiveness is not about letting go of the past. It's about creating a future where your worth is never in question. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Write it in the comments.